Hello everybody. Evan Abrams here, back at you with another video challenge this week. We're going to be cracking open After Effects, animating some text in a fairly nuanced way. If you are new to After Effects, if you're new to the text animators, hopefully we don't go too fast, but this is hopefully going to get people accustomed to combining different animators together, making something that they build up in more parts and create some interesting stuff. So hopefully that's going to be good for everyone. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat, and I'll try to guide you as best I can. But I got a lot of things to crank through on this one, so hopefully that'll be good to follow. And hi to everybody in the chat: Oliver, Umacorn, hello; Robert, Keys, Paul Weaver, hello. And Adira, hello. So. Oh, and Barbara, hey, what's going on? Sean, oh, so many people hanging out today. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into After Effects. Let's look at what we're doing. We are blasting in some 3D text. We're going to make that text EXPLODE, and it'll look a little something like this. So the idea here, let's zoom in a little bit, is we are going to have the text kind of blast in like that. It's going to get super big, stretching as it shows up. It's going to have a lot of sort of displacement. So we want a lot of that squash and stretch stuff. We want a lot of kind of follow through. We want to have those good animation principles, but we want to apply them to text. And the best way to do that is with text animators. Just a little preview. If we solo one of these, if we twirl down into everything that's going on, you can see quite a number of text animators in here. We've got something happening to the position, to the opacity, some that are pushing out, pushing back. We can rename these whatever we want, but there's a bunch, and you can see all the keyframes here. If we tap the U key, so there are quite a few keyframes that make up this type of a thing. So don't get too intimidated. This is just going to be built up layer on layer, so we can have really nuanced control to everything that's going on in here. If we want to start from scratch, though, let's go ahead and make a new composition. Let's call this from scratch like that. Boop, boop. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be deploying some text. I have the old text layer. Drop it down here, and we might say, hello. Say whatever. You can type whatever you want. The great thing about text animators is after you've done it once, you can apply this to whatever text you want. Change the text. It should all be good. And let's just go ahead and align this kind of in the middle center. We're going to orbit around it and have a fun time here. So the next thing I recommend doing, make it 3D. This needs to be three-dimensional so that we can enjoy extruding it. I'm going to cycle through my camera tools with C. Just rotate our view a little bit, zoom in a bit so it fills up the screen. Let's, we want to be able to see this, so let's go ahead and make a new solid for our background. A nice purple solid can hang out back there, whatever color you want. It doesn't matter. We can get rid of it later. But I want to be able to kind of see the size and everything of this as we keep working. And now that it is a 3D thing on a colored background, hey, we're halfway there. Let's twirl down. Let's go into the animate, and let's start to choose things that we want to change about this. We might say animate its position. And if you want to animate something about the position, you see we've got X and Y, and that's not making anything go far away from us. So we must, under animate, enable per character 3D. So that right here at the top of the menu. Now we can make things go in Z space, far away. The other thing that we need to do is we want to extrude this. So this doesn't have any extrusion yet. It's totally flat. If I look at it from the side, it's perfectly two-dimensionally flat. But because we are in the advanced 3D renderer, or if you're in the Cinema 4D renderer, the different 3D renderers can be changed with this little menu down here, or you might change them in the composition settings, 3D renderer. You can choose advanced 3D. It's the latest, it's the fastest, it's a beautiful one. I'll say okay there. And now that we are in the advanced 3D mode, vector layers, of which text is one, can be extruded. And we can do that by going down into the geometry options and giving it an extrusion depth. Boing, just like that. And I'm going to say, let's extrude it by 50 pixels. Right? We'll just go that far back. And we're going to keep that number in mind because we might need it later, but just keep in mind that we've extruded this by 50. And when we extrude, it goes back. It goes back and away from us when we extrude. So important bit of detail. I can't read this particularly well, so how about we animate, in quotes, something about this. Let's go ahead and animate or change the side color RGB. And now the sides are a totally different color. We nailed it. So we are crushing it with this already. I'm just going to change the side color to black. So I have a nice black color. Now, you notice that we have different animators. They have different names. I'm going to get rid of that first one because that was a test. That was just showing something. But with Animator 2, I'm just going to hit the Enter key here, and we're going to type in something else. We'll just call this color change. That's how I spell color. And now I don't have to worry about it. I've applied this color change to all of the text. We're looking great. The first thing, though, we want this stuff to pop on. So we're going to work this up one thing at a time. And so the first sort of way that we want to bring stuff up, I'm just going to add to this. Sorry, I'm going to animate. Oh, getting ahead of myself. I go up to the animate, and I'm going to say, I want to animate the position. I want these things to come at me from far away. So animator 1, I'm going to rename this to position change so I can keep it all straight. And the change I want is to push it very far away. I'm going to say, go away, text, and I push it way, way back on the screen so I can kind of safely have it pretty far away if I wanted to. If I want this change to stop being applied to everything, it is the range that's going to let me do that. So I'm going to come into the advanced, and I don't want to apply the change evenly to everything. I want to ramp up to the change. And by doing this, you can see that I can ramp up and I can offset that change boop, 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 like this as I push the change through. By default, if I haven't offset this at all, you see it's applied totally to one side and then not at all to the back. Or sorry, rather, we're ramping up to the value that we have said. So no application at the front, all application at the back. And if I offset this going from, say, -100 all the way off one side, and we push this all the way through, we are basically undoing that change, and then it shows up. Perfect. Not particularly poppy, we'll say. This does not have the vibes of something exploding onto the screen. Now we can fix that by coming down to the ease. So we're going to ease high at 100%, and you can see how this is changing the quality of this thing showing up. So now it's very snappy like that. And if I ease low in the opposite direction, we are now pulling these pow, 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 pow. It is really snapping forward. That's really feeling much more poppy to me. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. There we go. Truck in on this thing. There we go. So we've got snappy text showing up. That's feeling pretty good. But we want to layer on more stuff happening to this. When the text is coming forward, we want it to kind of scale and push itself to get bigger. But that isn't going to line up with the position change. Those are misaligned things. We're going to set them apart from each other. So I'm going to go animate, scale, and the scale change, I'm going to unlink, and we're going to Z stretch. I want this to come forward, not backwards. So there's something else that I need to change about all of this. And so I'm going to go up to animate, and I'm going to say anchor point. I'm going to change the anchor point by 50. Remember, we extruded this by 50. So if I move the anchor point 50 in the other direction, now when I start to scale this stuff like this, it's scaling from the back. So animator 2, let's rename that to be anchor point change. I'll just move that to be up next to the color change. I know these are not animated, so I don't need to touch them. And then this one is, we're going to call this like the scale on, perhaps, or the scale up, something like that. Let's go with like an 800 value. And so as this shows up, I want kind of a wave of scale to propagate through this. So I think there are a few ways that we can do that. I could come into the range selector, come into the advanced, and I could change the shape from square to round. And now you can see I can push, when I offset that, I can push this wave through in this way. Or I could use smooth, and smooth is very similar. So pow, 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 kind of like that. And you can affect the quality of this. So if you want to change the high and low points of that, you may as well. However, this creates a symmetrical change through. I don't want a symmetrical change. I am going to instead put a ramp down on this, and I'm going to offset the ramp down going through. And so it will go kind of like this. By pushing the ramp down through, I'm making it larger, larger, larger like this. So let's keyframe that offset coming on. So that'll go from -100. All of that is pushing forward, showing up. Lots of mouth sounds today. And then I want this to go away with a ramp as well. Well, I can just add to this another selector, another range selector. And this range selector will instead, let's make sure that this is also a ramp down. And it shouldn't be adding, it should be subtracting. And so if I offset this through, subtract, subtract, subtract. So let's keyframe that happening, and we'll just see how this looks as these two come together. So on, off, 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 off. And from this, we can modify the comings and goings of this scale change. So there we go. Now we've got a wave coming through. And if I want to kind of tailor the shape of the showing up, I can start to do that down here in the ease high and the ease low. So these values I can start to tweak up, and you'll start to see that the quality of how these are going, make sure that we're in the right one here, as we start to tweak these more and more in these opposite directions, it gets more and more kind of extreme. So let's say 20 and 20 on that. Ooh, not like that. It's these easings that I want to mess with. 20 and 20. It can get a little bit wacky trying to keep track of everything that's going on. So it can be helpful to try to sort of label things, expand them, contract them, try to work on sort of one thing at a time. That's why we're separating them out so that we can deal with them individually. And if you want to sort of jump to the end and see how it was all made, the starter files, excellent links to the description. Our mod is already on it. They're making it happen. But you can get your hands on those. So what I will do, just to save us some time, because usually we would have to kind of work up these values ourselves and to try to figure them all out and get it all perfect and good. But I thankfully had already already prepared one earlier, so we can get into the values of this. So the pushing out maneuver here is coming on with kind of a 150, and this on the other one, 60 and 60. Okay, so I'll just come back here. If, for example, you only want to have a look at your kind of ease high and ease low, you can type in ease in here, and it'll show you the ease high and ease low. And here we have our range selectors in here. So this was, I believe, 60 and 60. What was it back here? The pushing out was, it was 150. Okay, so we go 100 here and 50 there. Okay, so now things will have kind of the quality that we want. The lag between these is what causes that kind of hanging feeling that we're like, kind of like that. And this snapping forward, pow, I want to then line up with when this is happening so that it's getting bigger like that. So already we're making some great stuff. By simply aligning and pushing when these things happen, pow, 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 things are coming together. This is looking good. By building it up one thing at a time, you're getting a nice granular control over this. If you wanted more hang time, like if you wanted the text to kind of be pushed forward all the way more, then you just move these two blocks apart from each other. If you want less hang time, push them together like that. So you've got total freedom to make this exactly how you would like. If you want it to take longer, make it take longer. The world is your oyster. So in this case, what we're going to be doing is adding a few more details onto this so that we can work up our changes and add a little bit more nuance wherever you think it requires, okay? So the first thing is, if we're trying to obey our principles of animation, then maybe I should be putting like some back and forth, so things that don't sort of hit all the way, they have their inertia go through the thing. So like I said, there's another way that we can put a wave of stuff happening through, and that would be by using, we could be using a different shape. So got in my own head there for a minute. We want to be using either a round or a smooth shape. So I'm going to animate the scale, but also the position. So I'm going to add the property of position to this, and let's just call this the bounce back. So this is the bounce back when things go back. And again, we are working this up out here after the animation has completed so that we can keep piling stuff on. And what I want this to do is to move back. So it's like the inertia of the scale snapping back is putting this thing back a little bit, maybe just like 20. And then the scale, let's have this actually compress. So let's have it get like thinner like that. So it's getting squeezed. And then the range selector of that, come into the advanced. Again, we're going to be keyframing the offset to push this change through, but the shape is going to be a smooth shape. So the smooth shape is going to be pushed through. So if we push that all the way off the one side, and then we bring it all the way through like that, we just need to line this up for where this is kind of snapping back like that. So now it has a much more pleasant type vibe to it. And I think that's working out pretty nice. I think we're doing a great job. And that's right, we squish it. We don't squish things, we squish them. So there's a bounce back in one direction. Well, I'm just going to duplicate that, Command D when you're on the text animator. And let's call this the bounce forward. So now we've got the bounce forward, and so this will be a second wave that is going to run through after that first wave has gone through. And we could mess with a lot of this stuff, like we could be giving it a different position, or giving a different scale, stuff like that. But you can really just come into the amount and say -50%. So it's going to do the opposite of what we asked it to do previously. Is going to apply negative those values. And so if we line this up, actually, let's drag these keyframes forward so you can just see that ripple kind of go through on this thing. And that is a nice, pleasing tail to it. If you wanted the second one to be a little bit longer, we just extend that. We just pull this back here with everything else, and pow, yeah, that's working out. This is working out. So here we go. We're 20 minutes into this thing. We got 5 minutes together still here. So I'll say this. There are many, many combinations and interesting things that you could be doing with the text animators, layering this stuff on, timing it so that it lines up and happens when you want, how you want. It's all down to the shape, pushing that shape of the change through things, and then easing the sides of that, making the real shape of that exactly conform to how you feel it should go. We want this stuff to be revealed in some way, so we need to maybe have some opacity going on. So if we twirl down into this, let's go ahead and add to this the animation of opacity. And again, I'm just going to put this up, sort of put these in the order in which I imagine them happening. And the opacity change is that it's going to go down to 0. However, within the range selector, I'm going to go to the advanced, and I'm going to bring the smoothness down to none, so that as this is sort of revealing things, which will go by offsetting this from 0 up to 100, so we're just going to be showing up. Then we don't have that kind of awkward stuff in between. And now I just try to line this up, pow, 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 so that it's showing up specifically when I'd like it to. So it's like showing up already in transit, like that. And now we've got the speed, we've got the stuff showing up. We've got it kind of wubbing back and forth, very technical term, the wubbing. So make sure you get that going on. Now, it took us quite an amount of work to get this particular look figured out. And once we sort of arrange ourselves here to get this exactly where we want it, and so that's kind of blasting on from out of frame like that, maybe that's as good as we need to do. If you want this to seem more extreme, you might want to create a new camera. And we're going to use a low-numbered wide angle type of preset for this. Let's say we did like a 15 millimeter preset of that. And I'm just going to give us a bit of an angle on here, navigating around. You can see how extreme this looks when we are using those low numbers, those wider angles of the camera lens. It's very helpful to exaggerate the type of three-dimensional stuff that we're doing if you use a wider lens. If you were to use more of a telephoto type of lens, it's going to zoom us in, but it has a very flattening effect on things. So if you're looking for a flatter vibe, you want to use that type of a camera. The default camera is around 50 millimeter type of deal, but it's kind of average, kind of meh. If we want to make things that are extreme and explosive, then you probably want to be using somewhere on the two sides of this, either go wider or narrower, and that will make things much more extreme in either direction. Very helpful, hopefully very useful. I hope this has been helpful. That's my hope. But just to review before we're out of here, how do we make this thing? We start by typing out our text. We make it three-dimensional. We enable per character 3D. That's super important. You need to make sure that you are in a 3D renderer that will support extrusions, which can be done by changing it here in the menu, or you can go into your composition settings and change it there. So go into composition settings and go into our 3D renderer. We can pick it in here. Excellent thing to be doing. Then you will get access to the geometry options. Then we can extrude it, and then we start applying all of our different animators, starting with the biggest moves first. We want to get those big moves out of the way. In this case, our big move was all about a positional change. So we start with the position change. In fact, one of the things I really like about text animators is that we can just turn them off by not looking at them. So if we kind of run through everything that we applied on here, we did a color change. So we got the sides going in a different color. We did a position change. So if we play through, we can see the position change happening. We did a scale on. So a little custom wave of scaling on one side, scaling off the other side using ramp down, or you could use ramp up, ramp down. In order to get this scaling exactly how we wanted, we needed to change the anchor point. So we used an animator for that. So we'll just enjoy the combination of those two. There's our position, our anchor point change, and the scale change. Then we had a little bounce back so that it bounces boing back like that. And then we bounced it forward just by duplicating the bounce back and changing the amount to a negative number and then sliding that on. Anyway, in the end, we put an opacity change on and we're all good to go. So hopefully this has taught you a thing or two about combining text animators. I've been Evan Abrams. I continue to be Evan Abrams here on Adobe Live, challenging you with video things. Hopefully this has been a useful way for making handmade text animation right here in Adobe After Effects. There's still a rich, full day of things going on here on Adobe Live, so keep it right here. Make sure you subscribe on all the platforms, on the YouTubes, on Instagram. Makes me sound old when I say the YouTubes, but YouTube, Instagram, maybe I am kind of old. But anyway, till next time, stay creative, be kind to each other, and I will see you all around the internet. Okay, bye for now. Oh, and share with me the things you make. If you make something with this, share it with Adobe Live, share it with EC Abrams. I want to see this stuff. Okay, that's actually it. Bye for now.